So let's get started. This is a very intro to Node.js project. I was getting really bored, so I had to think of a theme. And so I've been really like jamming on this idea of like a spy and secret agents and those types of things. So this is called sending secret messages with the Courier API in Node.js. Are you all familiar with APIs like Twilio or Mailgun, SendGrid, those types of things? You can let me know in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and say it as well. APIs in general, yes, but not those specifically. Gotcha. So APIs like Twilio, Mailgun, SendGrid, these are ones that you can use to send a specific type of message. So Twilio is built to send an SMS. You can use it, you can integrate it into your code base, and you can send out one SMS, you can send out hundreds of SMSs, text messages. Mailgun, SendGrid, Gmail APIs, these are used for sending out emails. Because an API send out Slack messages. There are some APIs like AWS one that's to send out notifications. So there's like probably hundreds of different APIs that you can use to send out specific messages to specific channels. Yes, there's a lot of this stuff. I'll mute everyone. And then if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself again. But while I'm talking, I'll just mute everyone for now. What was I saying? I lose track of thought really quickly. Yeah, so if you want to send out a specific channel being like email, SMS, push notifications, chat messages, you can use those APIs. What Courier does is when you're a startup or when you're trying to build out like a really full-fledged product and you have a lot of customers that are dependent on you, they're not going to want to, or you're not going to want to just send out messages via one channel. You're going to want to build something that's really complicated that allows you to decide, hey, my user prefers using getting text messages based on certain conditions or getting emails based on certain other conditions. You might want to automate your different types of messages as well. There's a lot that you can do with it. So that's what Courier does. It's basically a layer that sits on top of all of these other types of messages, and it combines all of these potentially hundreds of API calls into like 10, 20 lines of code. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this. I do want to say that we are hosting a hackathon right now. So if you finish this project, you can submit it. And the link is in the chat over here. It's the hackathoncourier.com/hackathon link. And yeah, feel free to submit it. Even if you don't win an actual prize, if your project works and your demo shows that it works, you're going to get $20 anyway. So I would recommend doing it. And then first place is $1,000 direct cash prize. Second place is you're going to get Apple AirPods Pro. We have a public favorite option, which you'll get a keyboard, and then runners up will get a hydro flask. So $20. Got it. Yes. And yeah, everyone will get a $20 Amazon gift card. So this what's going on section is basically just setting up the theme of the story, which is that we are secret agents today, and our goal is to send encoded messages to our spy network. So just imagine you're like this really cool secret agent, and you have all these like fellow spies that work with you, and they're trying to get messages. Some people prefer looking at their phone, getting text messages. Some people prefer emails. So we're going to try to set up both of them today, right? When we say encoded messages, we're going to try to actually integrate a Morse API and translate those messages into Morse. So this is just like a backdrop of how we're going to do it. I'm just going to go ahead and get started. If you have VS Code opened or installed on your computer, go ahead and open it. If you don't have VS Code installed on your computer, you can also just log into rebel.it. I'm not sure if you've used it before, but it's really easy to get started over here. Or you can also just take a couple minutes to download VS Code. And when you're on rebel.it, you can just create a new Node.js project, and then everything else that we do will be pretty much the same. I have a new VS Code tab open, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. First thing it tells us to do is log into our Courier account. So you can go on this link. I'm going to log into my account. I already have a bunch of different workspaces open. So your initial login, if you've never used Courier before, is going to be slightly different. And it's going to ask you to create a brand new workspace. I think in my case, it's not going to do that. Give me 1 second. Okay, cool. Mine's already taking me to a different workspace that I already have. So I'm going to switch workspace and create a new one. Let me know, just send like a thumbs up or a we're good or a yes in the chat once we're all on this same page. Or if you've already passed this page. Okay, Emmanuel gave me a thumbs up, so I'll give it 1 more minute from this point. Was everyone able to, you can feel free to unmute yourself as well. I'm at the home page. Cool. Awesome. Alexander made it. Awesome. Is that Epen or I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. Curran made it. Just signed up. Sweet. Awesome. Cool. So quick recap. We clicked on this link. We logged in and it should take you to this page directly. Awesome. And I'm going to go ahead and type in my information. We're going to call this the Codementor workspace. You can call it workshop or shop, sure. And continue. I was going to ask us a couple more questions about the type of project we're trying to build. So the first thing is going to ask what type of message you want to send. You can add in or remove as many as you want. I'm going to just go ahead and get started with email because that's the quickest and easiest to set up. And I'm going to say that I want to use Node.js because that's what we're building in today. The recommended provider is the Gmail API because it takes you literally 2 seconds to actually set up. And you can just sign in with Gmail. With any other API, you would have to go log into the API, get the API key added in here, which is not really a tough process, but this is just the easiest one. So we're going to give Courier access to send messages. Courier is never going to send messages unless you explicitly are the one sending the message. And then it's given us this like pre-built code snippet in curl, and you can go ahead and change the type of message you're trying to send, or the language or the framework that you're using to send it. We're going to use curl because it's again, the quickest way to do it. And we kind of just want to rush through this onboarding process and get to the actual coding part. Can y'all let me know once you're at this point where you have the actual code snippet ready in front of you? Okay, sweet. Alexander's made it. Christian's got it. Awesome. As you can see over here, it already has your API key embedded into it. It has the email that you want to send it to, which is also the email that it's going to come from. And it has a little basic message sent in. You can also kind of see how Courier works in terms of variables. We have a variable over here called joke, and it's stored within data. So we'll work with that a little bit later as well. Now you want to just open up terminal, paste the curl command in there, make sure that the API key is in there. Otherwise, you're going to get a little unauthorized error message. And once you get the request ID, this essentially means that there's a dancing pigeon. It means that your message was sent through via the Courier API. And now it doesn't necessarily mean that it was successful, but you can go into Courier to figure out what happened next, right? So we have a dancing pigeon, which is a pretty good sign that things are going well. Now what we're going to do is see the send log. And it says that 27 seconds ago, we sent a message, and this is how it rendered. And this is basically like, hey, this message was sent. Things are good. Status was okay. There's no errors. If there was an error for some reason, let's say that the email that you tried to send to wasn't working. Let's say you were trying to send a text message and there was something wrong with your Twilio API provider. This is where you would figure out what that error is and how to fix it. It would give you a little message that says, you know, something went wrong and this is how to fix it. Can't think of one right off the bat. Awesome. So let's go down here. We've finished all of these processes. Now we want to head over to channels and search for Twilio. So I'm going to go ahead and click on channels. You can see over here that we already have Gmail configured. So we're ready to send out emails, and we did just now as well. Now we're going to scroll down to Twilio. I'm going to pause over here again and ask you guys to send me a thumbs up or a yes or a we got it message once we're at this stage that you were able to send out that message. Things are going good. If things are not going good, okay, Ramon, how are you doing? What's wrong? Do you want to unmute yourself, or would you rather, you can type in the chat as well if you prefer. At the Gmail login. Okay, what's the error saying? Oh, you've added Twilio. Great job, Jacqueline. Not sure how to configure it. Okay. Afterwards, where do I have to go? Once you're at the Gmail login, if the Gmail login happened successfully, it would give you a little code snippet that said, copy this code. Did you get that? Bunch of errors in PowerShell. Damn, what type of errors are you getting? Does it say? I wonder if you guys are able to screen share. Is that an option over here? Missing expression. Interesting. I'm gonna stop screen sharing. Do any of you have the ability to screen share specifically for Raman and Rushali because you guys are getting errors? Also, for everyone else, if you were able to reach this point successfully, you can go ahead and continue down the Twilio path. Jacqueline, I will get to your question in a second. Have I tried admin mode? I'm not sure if I know what that is. No option for screen share. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to head over to forum.career.com and go to open Q&A and actually post like a screenshot of the error that you're getting and just send me a message over here saying, hey, I just posted it on the forum so I can access it over here and let me know what errors you're getting. Are you sharing? No, I shall share my screen. Okay, forum.career.com. It's the link that I sent in chat. Head over to open Q&A over here and just type in your concerns. Okay, so we're over here. We're going to Twilio.com. We're going to log in. If you haven't created an account with Twilio before, you can. If you want to skip Twilio entirely because it's going to take too long, you can do that as well. This is simply for us to send both SMS as well as email. But your app is going to work completely fine even if you don't integrate Twilio. You're just going to have to skip a couple of steps. I'm going to actually remove this from the screen real quick and log in. Okay, great. Okay, we have a text. Did we get a text yet? We did. Awesome. So the first two keys that you need in Courier are the account SID and the auth tokens. I'm going to go ahead and copy those two and paste the account SID over here. Copy the auth token paste it over here. And then we need a messaging service ID. So there should be a link to how to create a messaging service ID if you've never created one before. I have, so I'm going to go over to, I believe it's an active numbers, and I'm going to my messaging service. I'm going to go ahead and copy this as well. And we can just install the provider. Let me go back to Jacqueline. Were you able to configure it at this point? How are you doing? I want to know if we're at the same point or not. Okay, I'll pause again for like 10 seconds. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Didn't configure it, but fine going without it. I think Gmail is good. Okay, sounds good. Where am I supposed to see the code snippet? You won't get a code snippet at this point. We'll get to that point in a second. So if you were able to complete Twilio, or even if you chose not to, we've completed chapter 1. We were able to set up our channels, and our Courier API is able to send messages. Sweet. Chapter 2 is sending messages now, not just the code snippet that we were getting, but actually, being able to edit it and doing our own thing with it. So there's a little send API documentation you can check out over here. On the right, you're going to see some starter code, and you can choose the type of language or framework you want to use to send these messages. So we're going to select Node.js, and we're going to get started. So down here, you can kind of go through all of these. This workshop's going to be in Node.js, so we'll get started over here. This is an API reference page, so you can kind of start adding a bunch of variables on the side, and you'll notice that the actual code snippet pre-populates. Where do you find messaging service SID? I think, is that Alexander? Alexander, there's a link within these docs over here on how to create one. You're going to have to create one first before you can get access to it. Let me see if there's any questions. Not yet. Okay. Where were we? We were over here. So I'm going to remove all of this. And right now, this pre-populated code has, okay, we know we're sending a post request. We know that there's an authorization key, which is the actual API key from Courier. And we know that there's a message, which we can send via a template. This is a basic post request. Awesome. And now what we want to do is start editing this as well. So we want to we want to first add an email address on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And we're going to, we can just add this over here. So the email that I'm going to send to is courier.demos@gmail.com. You can send it to your own email so that you can see it kind of pop up on your own side as well. You can send it to courier.demos. You'll see it pop up on my screen instead. And you can use a user ID. We're going to skip that because we don't have any user set up in Courier, but Courier does have a pretty strong user management system. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to just ask it in the forum as well, and we can have a separate conversation about it afterwards. If you're using Twilio, you can add a little phone number in here. I think I'll get a temporary phone number. There's a bunch of apps, by the way, online that you can use. It's just a random one that seemed to work. So I'm going to copy this and pray that it works. And close Twilio now. So I'm going to send a phone number over here, and you can see that our profile or user profile has been automatically updated. Again, quick reminder, if you're not following along, you're stuck at any point, just let me know in the chat. We don't care about the brand, but you can make a brand, and that's just going to change like the colors and the logo that your email is populated with afterwards. It's just like a little extra thing that you can do as a designer. And then we have routing as an option. So I'm going to skip routing for a moment right now because I want to first just make sure that our API works with a regular message. I think I skipped one part somewhere. Okay, template. Instead of sending a notification template, I'm going to click on content. And then when you click on content, it's going to open title and string. And you can write whatever your message is. Title is like the subject of an email, and body is the actual body of an email or an SMS or whatever type of message you're sending. So this is new subject. Let's change this to Codementor workshop. And we're going to do testing or whatever you want to write into the body of your message. So we know who we're sending it to. We know what we're sending. Is there anything else that we need to add over here? Email body. We need to replace the auth token with our Courier API key. So obviously this is not my Courier API key. I'm going to head back to Courier. I'll click on settings, API keys, copy the first one, and then paste it in here. And you can try it over here as well. But since we want to build an actual Node.js project, I'm going to go ahead and open a new project in VS Code. In demos, call this Codementor workshop. And open it. Now we can just create a new file called index.js. Cool. Taking another 10-second break to ask how things are going. Is anyone behind from this step and stuck, or is just facing some sort of bug or error or anything like that? Do we have any questions? Anything? Still setting up Twilio. Got it. That does take a couple of minutes. Okay. Anyone else? How's it going? Still setting up Twilio? Okay, gotcha. Just for the sake of time, because I do need to end this in like 35 minutes, I might ask you guys to set up Twilio after this workshop and just reach out to me if you have any problems, and we can hop on like a separate Zoom call or something after. But if you're okay with it, would you mind just skipping the Twilio part so that you can get through? Also, you don't have to. You can totally do it on your own. But yeah, you can set up Twilio if you want to, if you're comfortable with like not following along the same pace. I will be available after to answer any questions as well. Okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and continue. So I copied this code over here. We have our index.js file. We're going to go ahead and paste it over here. Everything looks good. You can create an environment.env file and save your API key. I believe the actual the blog post itself will tell you how to install the .env file and everything. Yeah, it'll tell you how to save environmental variables. I'm going to skip that for the sake of time, and we're just going to try to make sure that this works. The last thing that we need to do is install Node Fetch. So I'm going to open a new terminal. If you want Node Fetch documentation, you can just type npm Node Fetch, and the documentation pops up. In my personal case, this works better if I use this specific command. So I'm going to open a terminal and type npm install node-fetch @2. And we're going to go ahead and paste it. You'll see a package .json, package.json file show up. So you know that your project is now officially able to work with other NPM packages. And I believe if you click on it, Node Fetch will be available over here. Whoopsies, don't edit this file. Don't be like me. Okay. we should be good. At this point, quick reminder, if you have set up Twilio, you should be able to send SMSs. If you don't have Twilio set up, you don't need this line of code because it's not going to send text messages anyway, and you might just end up getting a bunch of bugs that you don't want. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just type node index.js and see if it works. Okay, it worked. We got a request ID, which basically came from this statement over here, where it was logging the response from this fetch call. And what we can do is head over to our email, see if we got an email, and we did. It works. We can play around with it a little bit too. So let's say that I want to add a couple of variables and say, hey, hi name. This is the Codementor workshop. In this case, I need to add a data object, whoopsies, in quotes, and open the curly braces, and then within those curly braces, add all of the properties or all the variables that I want to include. So in this case, the variable is called name, and I'm going to put my own name in here. And then when we run it again, we will get another email, which is, oh, I put it in the wrong place, my bad. Title is supposed to be the subject, and this is supposed to be welcome to the workshop. Anyway, you can see that it's working, and you can play around with it a little bit. Now, just to be good programmers, we know we have to put everything in function, so it's a lot easier to use. So I'm going to just copy all of this code, cut it, and I'm going to create an async function. Are you all in the chat? Let me know. Are you familiar with async functions? Have you used them before? If you have no idea what an async function is, let me know and we can talk about it. You've used them before. Sweet, Christian. Awesome. I'm going to call this send message. I'm going to paste everything within that async function. And then after, I'm also going to actually call the function, otherwise it's not going to work. Okay, cool. Functions, hopefully you've been able to use them in the past. They're just like, hey, I want to do this specific task and I want to be able to repeat this task over and over again. So instead of having just like 20 lines of code that exist in your program, you're going to encompass, I guess that's the word, them within a function so that, you know, I'm able to send this message as many times as I want. Instead of the other option would be if I want to send this multiple times, I would just have to like paste this code 20 times, and that would just be like really crappy coding, right? So we would put it inside of a function so that we could reuse this function and say, hey, I want to send a message. I want to send a message as many times as I want. An async function is required in this case because within JavaScript, JavaScript runs code synchronously, like it goes line by line. And so if you have a specific line of code that takes time, what JavaScript is going to do is it's just going to try to run it and be like, oh shit, that didn't work. And it's just going to keep going. It's not going to wait for your code to complete executing. So an asynchronous function is kind of like a reminder to JavaScript to say, anything that happens within this code, you need to pause and wait and make sure that it completes executing before you continue. In this case, and in many cases when you're working with APIs, because you're dealing with this idea of making an API call to another server, in this case, we're making a call to Courier, that's going to take time. Courier is going to take a couple of seconds to say, hey, you asked me to send an email. Okay, I sent this email. Okay, that was successful. Here is your request ID, right? Or, hey, that was not successful. Here's your error message. Because that process takes a couple more seconds than like the normal console log statement or something, we need to indicate to JavaScript, hey, As long as you're doing anything within this function, make sure to wait, right? In this case, it's this specific line of code that we need to wait for. Does that kind of make sense? Let me know if it doesn't. I'll try to find some better documentation that explains it well. And okay, cool. So we have an asynchronous function. We're sending out the message. That's fantastic. Except the message that we're sending out is kind of useless to our spies, right? So we need to take this to the next level and actually send out a valuable message to our spies and make sure that we're encrypting it as well. Cool. Oh, I forgot about routing. Actually, yeah, let's do routing first. Here, we're sending an email. We also have a phone number. We haven't actually indicated that we want to send an SMS. Aren't you missing the await keyword in that function? The way that we would use the await keyword in this function is instead of basically just doing all of this, I'm going to comment this out. We can have a const response. Response is equal to await. What Christian mentioned is that when you're working with async functions, also to indicate to that function that there's a specific thing that you literally need to wait for, you can use this await keyword. So on line 31 over here, I hope you can see this. I hope it's not too small. While we're trying to get a response from fetch, the await keyword is going to indicate to this program or to this function to say, hey, we literally need to wait for this line to complete working. In this case, because we're using a dot then, it's going to essentially do that same thing. Awesome. That's a really good point. We're going to have to do this at some point later, so I'm glad that you brought it up. And what I can do now is say console.log response. And the reason we would have to have done this at some point eventually is so that we can use the response variable. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to use it outside of just these 4 lines of code. Okay, so we were talking a little bit about routing these messages so that we're not just sending emails. Right now, Courier sees, okay, I have this information on my user. I have this message. And Courier automatically knows that we have the Gmail and Twilio API set up. So by default, Courier is going to send an email to a single channel, the first channel that it sees. So it's going to try email. Let's say we didn't have a Gmail API set up. It would try email, it would fail to do so, and then it would go ahead and reroute the phone number, right? But we want to take the power back in our hands. We don't want Courier to make the decisions for us in this case. We might in some cases. But the routing object allows you to decide where and how and when you want to send channels. Hi, Alberto. Did you mute yourself? Did you unmute yourself because you have a question?
Oh, sorry, my bad. My mic is on. Sorry.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Yeah, feel free to unmute yourselves if you do have questions, by the way. You don't have to use the chat if you want to speak. Routing. So here we're going to specify the types of channels that we have. So let's go up here. Where is it? You can decide the type of method you want to send. There's 2 options in method. You can either do single methods saying, hey, I have a bunch of different channels and I want Courier to pick one specific channel to send it to, or you can choose all. We're going to do all in this case, and we're going to say, hey, instead of just the email channel, I'm going to make an array so we can include all of them and say both email and SMS. And what this is going to do is Courier is going to try to send an email. It's going to hopefully succeed. And then it's also going to try to send an SMS, and it's hopefully going to succeed. If it fails to do either of them, it's still going to do the other one.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
In the documentation, it says channels with S.
Channels with S.
Yeah.
Thank you. I make that mistake every single time. And yes, I actually don't know who that was because I didn't see your name pop up on the side. So let me know who that was.
That was Christian.
Oh, Christian. Awesome. Thanks, Christian. And we're gonna try to send this message and see if it works out. Okay, so we got an error, which is great. We love errors. What does it say right now? So it tried to make a request and it didn't work out. This might have less to do with routing and more to do with the way that I'm actually calling this function. Let's see what the problem is. While I am trying to debug this thing, what step are y'all on? Are you at the same pace as me? Are we still trying to figure out Twilio? Are you way ahead of me so far? What's going on? Let me know in the chat. Oh, we're having an issue with the await keyword. What did I do wrong? Do I not need a wait over here? Maybe that's the case. Promise pending. I do need something. What if I just remove this for the time? And let me deal with that later. So, oopsies. That's so weird. For some reason, it doesn't like the way that I was using await in that specific situation. I'm not sure because it works, or it should work when we do it later with the Morse API. Didn't understand that solution. Honestly, Christian, me neither. Trying to figure out if I want to deal with this and actually figure out why it's having an issue with await. Will you need async? So we only need async when we're defining the function, right? I do understand that the await's not gonna work over here because we're not inside of an async function. Const, what was it, response is equal to await. This doesn't work, you're right, Como, because we're not inside of that async function. But I'm trying to figure out why. Okay, let's say we put it inside this async function, right? And we still just do this without the await. Does this work? This still works. Response is equal to await fetch. And then we wanted to console log response. This doesn't work. That's so weird. I'm not sure why this is happening. Okay. I'm going to post a message about why this happens later. I'll figure it out after the workshop and I'll post it in the forum. So if you are curious, forum.courier.com, I'll post it by the end of the day. If you are not curious, then that's all right. Let's move forward because we have like 20 minutes to finish this workshop and I do want to integrate the Morse API real quick. So we're going to get rid of this for now, which kind of sucks, but hopefully we're able to figure it out on the way. Awesome. Where were we at? So we figured out the routing, right? Ideally, Signal is not going to send it to SMS, but all is. Let's try to send all, and let's see if we were actually able to get a message over here. Now, the weird thing about this is that it is not, it's a temporary number. So it's kind of annoying in that case. But what I will do is off screen, I'm going to change the number to my own phone number and then try to send it so I can show you that it works. I'm going to run, all I did to the code was I added my own phone number instead, and I am now running the function itself. And I'm also just waiting to see if I get a text message from myself. What we can do over here, though, is go into our logs and see, oh, okay, so we got an error. Twilio was undelivered. Interesting. Why was Twilio undelivered? Undeliverable. Is it because I didn't set up Twilio properly? I'm going to pull this code back in over here. I'm going to pull this out so it doesn't show my phone number on screen. Okay. We're going to try to see our channel. We have Twilio set up. Oh, we have like 15 minutes. Okay. You guys, I'm so sorry. We're gonna skip Twilio. It's not working. But I promise you I will give you a better solution after this workshop. What we will do is integrate the Morse API. Can you test Twilio in the UI? You can't test in the UI. It's really just an API thing. So if I had more time, and what I will do after this workshop is test it on its own without the email and try to figure out why it's not sending that text message. I wonder if there's anything here that tells me phone number is written properly. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing that. It most likely has something to do with one of these values. Just like setting up the Twilio channel, because everything else looks correct to me. But okay, let's skip over it. Let's really quickly integrate the Morse API, right? Where's the Morse API? Cool, chapter 3, integrate a Morse translation API to convert messages to the Morse code. Were you all able to get to the point where you are at least sending emails? If you were successful, even though I wasn't in sending SMSs, let me know in the chat what stage you're at right now. I'm with you. Okay, sweet. Awesome. Christian, did you try to set up Twilio? Was that part working for you? Or are we getting the same error messages? Don't have Twilio. Okay, sounds good. The only thing that I can think of right now to actually test this out is just like make sure that these values are correct. This is correct. And then messaging service ID should be correct. Let's save this again. I'm gonna try to send this. See what we got. Where is it? Oh, do we still get that same message? Oh, weird. Okay. Okay, never mind. It's working. Maybe it was that I copied one of the API keys. I'm guessing the second API key, I just didn't copy it properly. So hopefully that's the case. But we are getting a text message. Unfortunately, I lost the temporary thing. I don't have any way of confirming on this that it works. Okay, actually, let me try it again. I'm so sorry, guys. I keep going back and forth about what I'm doing. I'm going to put my own number in here. I really want to show you that it works. I'm going to call this again. All I did was I updated my phone number in the code base and I ran that program again. And we're going to see if this works. Okay. Oh, I got a text message. I don't know if you can see this actually. Whoops. Do you see it? I got a text message that says, "Hi, Shreya, this is the Codementor workshop." Cool. I'm glad that worked. Yeah, thank you. The worst thing is when things don't work out when you're, doing things live. But I'm gonna change the number back to the temporary number. And we're going to continue from this point onward. So now we're at chapter 3, integrating the translations API to convert messages to Morse code. So there's a couple of documentation links over here that you can click to get access to the translations API. You want to start by encasing the courier API in a function. We already did that. Make sure that it is async, refactor options to courier options. So that we haven't done yet. The reason we're changing options to courier options is because the Morse API is also going to have options, and we don't want two variables that have the same name ever. Options are courier options. Great. There's just two places where you have to change it. Our code looks like this, so we're pretty good to go at this point. Now we want to copy the code within the async function to make a new API call. So I'm just going to copy all of this and paste it in here. And we're going to change everything. So we don't need this body anymore. We don't need an authorization key because we're working directly with the Morse API and they don't have an authorization key. I believe it's a GET request. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to a GET request. We can remove the entire body, which is lines 13 to 31 in our case. Remove all of this. And rename this to Morse options, rename this to Morse options, and remove the actual endpoint because we're going to add in a new endpoint over here. Great. Let's head over here and see what this looks like. So this blog post tells us that we're going to, let me increase the size a little bit over here. So we're going to need our original message. And then I'm going to just go ahead and copy this. When we're sending the message to the Morse code, because we're actually going to be adding this physically to the endpoint itself, we can't just have like spaces between our message. We want to change the spaces to the encoded version so that a space is a %20. And then the Morse endpoint itself is going to be the default endpoint plus our little message over here. So we're gonna go ahead and paste that as well. So this is going to look something like, just put in comments, it's gonna look something like this. You could totally just have this entire message written out on one line. The only reason I separated it out is so that it's easier to visually understand. HTTP encode. Thanks, Christian. Let me see. Awesome. And then we want to make sure that our Morse endpoint is in here. We can remove the quotes because we're using a variable, not a string. And then hopefully this works. The last thing that we need to do is actually get the response that we get from the Morse API. As Christian was saying, in this case, we're actually going to have to use the await keyword. I'm going to call this Morse response, and we're going to wait for it so that we are able to access that response outside of these 4 lines of code. And it kind of walks you through how to do that as well. We're also going to have to change the formatting of it. So we'll copy lines 5 to 6. Place them in here. Translation just takes the Morse response and converts it into a JSON object. And then this message variable over here gets the specific translation from the entire response object that's returned to us. If you're curious about why we're doing this entire mechanism, I would recommend that you first try to console log Morse response, see what you get. Then you try to console log just translation, see what you get. And then you try to console log message. I'm not going to do that because we don't have time. But that is the best way to kind of visually understand why we need to set up these 2 lines of code in the middle as well. I believe, oh, yes, last step is actually to make sure that we're sending this message. So message over here was this. Instead of, sorry, the body, instead of saying all of that, I'm just going to go ahead and send message, confirm that that is what I need to send. And then we're going to go ahead and try to run Node.js. We did a bunch of stuff. Okay, things happened. This translation is coming from line 24 on my line, on my file. And the request ID says that we were able to send a message. So let's head over to our email. We got an email that was encoded in Morse. Sweet. And then I don't think the temporary function is going to work. But if you are to replace this number with your own phone number, then you should receive a text message as well. Funny, yeah. It's kind of fun. It's a silly little project. But it's a cool way to see how you can use Courier to send a bunch of different types of messages. And then if you want to do something a little bit more complicated, you can. Actually, what I might do for the next couple of minutes is just show you one of the projects that was submitted to the hackathon. This is like my current favorite project. It's called Word of the Day. And it does something similar where it sends an email with a translation, but it actually, if you go to the demo, it has like this front end setup where you can add in your own email address, and then it's every single day it's going to send you a translation of a random word. So you can add in your email address, you can choose which language you want to send. And I've actually been getting this. I'm going to show you word of the day. And you just get an email that looks like this. It's like, hey, this is the word of the day. This is what it means. You can choose any language you want. You can change the languages just by going to the demo. And it's really fun. I think you guys should check it out. How are we doing in terms of completing this project itself? I know like setting up Twilio was kind of the main issue that a lot of us ran into. Were there any other problems? Are you feeling confident? Having fun is the best way to learn. Thanks, Christian. I think so too. Were you all able to complete it? Yes. If no, give me a thumbs down. And we can set up a separate time to kind of go through it and figure out what went wrong. We have like a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to stay on call here if you have any questions. And then at my 11 a.m., so in like 3 minutes from now, I will end this session. But you can reach out to me. Actually, I should let you know where you can reach out to me. So you can either email me if you want to email me. Let me get the link to our forum as well. Best way to get technical questions answered is going to the forum, because that is where our engineers are actually going to look at those questions and they can give you a much better and more technical response than I can. Copy link address. Thank you. I'm glad you guys had a good time. I will try to run it later. Will we receive this recording? I believe so. Darren, who kind of helped me set all of this up, said that there will be a recording, so hopefully. But if not, at the top of this blog, there is a video recording that pretty much does everything that we did today. Yeah. If you guys want that $20 Amazon gift card, whenever you're done and you know that it's working, feel free to just like record a 1-minute demo of like, hey, look, I send this API call. It works. I get an email, and I will make sure to send that gift card over to you afterwards, after the hackathon's over. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and I will stop sharing. I will find that list of resources that I shared earlier and paste them at the bottom as well in case you want to copy them before this ends. Awesome. I'm going to head out, but thank you guys so much for joining me today. Bye.